Every October, the Global Alliance for Public Relations and Communication Management dedicates a month-long celebration of communication students and young practitioners through the Student and Young Practitioners Month. SYPM is dedicated to fostering spaces where young professionals can exchange ideas, network, share ideas, and discuss the future of the PR and communications profession. This year's hashtag Next in Line reflects the belief that communication can change the world. As new technologies reshape the landscape, this initiative challenges students and young practitioners to use both their voices and tools like AI responsibly, harnessing innovation to build trust, counter misinformation, and drive positive change. We're empowering students and young practitioners through a series of rocket forums, changemakers recognition, and Hero Web conferences, showcasing the talents of students and young PR professionals across the globe. SYPM 2025 kicks off its activities with the hashtag Next in Line Rocket Forums, exciting roundtable discussions organized by universities in 6 regions, fostering dialogue on how communication can change the world by countering misinformation, strengthening media trust, and preparing professionals for the future. At each forum, students will sign the Changemakers Manifesto, a collective pledge to use communication not just as a tool, but as a force for trust, innovation, and positive impact in a world reshaped by AI. The Next in Line Changemakers Recognition will identify and recognize outstanding 60 young communicators from universities, brands, and agencies who have demonstrated responsible communication practices, highlighting their contributions on a global platform. These changemakers will be honored at the exciting Hero Web Conference at the end of the month. Hashtag Next in Line Hero Web Conference will bring together young, top-notch PR and communication leaders to explore how communication, ethical, responsible, and inclusive, can drive meaningful change. Participants across 6 regions will gain insights, strategies, and inspiration to apply in their careers, contributing to shaping a world where communication truly makes an impact. Through the hashtag Next in Line initiative, we aim to amplify the voices of tomorrow's leaders. Join us as we continue to celebrate brilliant young minds who will shape the future of responsible communication in the PR and communications industry.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to the hashtag Next in Line Hero Web Conference, the flagship event of the Global Alliance's Student and Young Practitioners Month celebration. This event also serves as a kickoff event for this year's hashtag Next in Line movement. Today's conference aims to empower the next generation of PR and communication professionals through collaborative, innovative, and responsible practices that drive positive change in an increasingly digital and AI-powered world. To formally open today's session, let's welcome Ms. Gesille Sedra Buot, Chief Business Development Officer at LSPR Institute of Communication and Business. Ms. Buot is the Chief Business Development Officer of LSPR Institute Jakarta, and the Executive Director of LSPR Institute Bali. For today's conference, she will provide us with an overview of the exciting topics ahead, from the challenges, opportunities, and impact of youth-led communication movements in the AI era. Let's all give her a warm round of applause.
Thank you, Anna. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. I'm thrilled to see so many young practitioners and students joining the hashtag Next in Line Hero Web Conference. From hashtags to headlines, how communicators can change the world in the AI era. for the North America, South America, and Latin America session. So this year's theme, Communication Can Change the World, reflects our belief that truth-driven voices can build trust and inspire meaningful change. As AI transforms how stories are told, young communicators are called to use these tools responsibly. And this is to harness innovation, counter misinformation, and promote transparency in every message they craft. So, time and again, the youth have shown their ability to spark dialogue and drive societal progress. So, in this session, we aim to explore how they can combine effective communication with ethical use of AI to navigate complex global challenges. So, today we come together to champion trust, transparency, and responsible communication in the age of artificial intelligence. And we are deeply grateful to all students and young professionals joining us today, as your presence and passion truly matter. So we hope that today's discussion will empower you with practical insights on ethical communication, mentorship, and accountability, and inspire integrity and innovation in PR for generations to come. So before we dive into the panel discussion, we have prepared a short video on these youth-led movements to serve as a kickoff point for the discussion today. So this type of format is a first for us, and we're excited to hear from our distinguished panelists from the part of the world. So now let's watch a short video on how these communication-driven AI-empowered movements are creating ripples of change across North America, South America, and Latin America.
This is the Next in Line Hero Web Conference 2025. Across the world, young people are moving quickly, and while the tools have changed, the stakes have not. Clarity and accountability still decide outcomes. From hashtags to headlines, how communication can change the world in an AI era. Recent youth-led movements in the region remind us that change often starts with young people, and it endures when communication turns fleeting moments into wide-scale movements. Here are some highlights. AI has revolutionized how students learn and study. Writing is made easier, research is faster, and information is quicker to process. With its growing presence in everyday learning, it has become an indispensable tool in doing more work in less time. Yet behind this convenience, a deeper concern is beginning to surface. A viral TikTok video by former English teacher Hannah Maria revealed how her students' literacy and critical thinking had declined because of their reliance on AI for schoolwork. Despite its redeeming qualities, with little to no regulation on its use in classrooms and AI's growing complexity by the day, its ethical implications are becoming harder to navigate. Youth-led protests erupted across Peru on October 16, 2025, following the swearing-in of President José Gerri. With his history of corruption and ties to controversial pension reforms, frustration among young Peruvians continued to rise. Their outrage deepened after reports confirmed that one protester had already lost their life at the hands of the police, a reminder of the growing abuse of power and lack of public trust. Gen Z-led rallies quickly spread through social media, especially on TikTok, where young Peruvians encourage others to take a stand. Many protesters waved the iconic one-piece Jolly Roger flag, which they've used as a powerful symbol of defiance against corruption. In their own way, the youth have turned a piece of pop culture into a banner of resistance, with hopes of sparking change through shared voices and collective action. Among various youth-centered movements, communication prevails as the uniting force that drives change. In the United States, students turn to AI as a study tool, simplifying education but testing the boundaries of ethics. Meanwhile, in Peru, young people use social media to broadcast their call for accountability. Despite their differences, these instances still reveal a common truth. The youth amplify communication through technology, turning it into a catalyst for change. Yet in both education and activism, the same question remains. How do we use these tools responsibly? When communication is grounded in responsibility and shared purpose, it becomes more than information, it becomes transformation. That is why we uphold the Venice Pledge, a global commitment to the ethical, transparent, and responsible use of artificial intelligence in communication. In this web conference, we aim to answer these pressing issues and offer you insights. Beyond asking AI to complete schoolworks, at what point does students' use of AI begin to hinder critical thinking? How can students practice ethical and responsible use of AI without compromising independent thought? What makes the youth's use of online communication a unique catalyst for real-life change and action? How have online acts of resistance become effective tools for advancing movements beyond physical protests or rallies? And what communication gaps emerge in today's technology-driven world for young people striving for change? Let's discuss.
Yes, so this year, hashtag Next in Line underscores a powerful belief that communication, when combined with AI, can change the world. Around the globe, youth-led movements are proving just how powerful communication can be in shaping perceptions and driving collective action. So, without further ado, let's begin with our first speaker, Ms. Bonnie Cava, the founder and CEO of Reputation Lighthouse and a board member of Global Alliance. Today, she will share her insights on the Global Alliance's Venice Pledge and transparency and trust in the digital age. Bonnie Caveri is a global voice on ethical and responsible AI. She advises CEOs and leadership teams on how to build, protect, and grow corporate value, especially in times of change. So her work spans brand strategy, reputation, mergers and acquisitions, culture integration, and AI governance. She is the founder and CEO of Reputation Lighthouse, where she has worked with more than 50 organizations at critical moments in their growth. That's preparing for funding, entering new markets, navigating mergers, planning exits, and managing reputational risk. Today, her focus is helping companies implement AI in a way that is responsible, trusted, and aligned with long-term value. Bonnie serves on the board of the Global Alliance for Public Relations and Communication Management. She is also chair of the Global Communication Certification Council, which oversees international certification standards for the communication profession. Once again, please give Miss Bonnie a warm round of applause.
Thank you, Giselle. It's nice to be here today. I wanted to start by talking a little bit about where we are in the world of AI. And I call it the messy period. We are trying to figure this world out. We have leaders like Pascal Bornet, who's trying to guide us in a way that AI will be a partner. And then we have leaders like Sam Altman that tells us that we're going to be able to work 1 day a week and that it's going to be a wonderful life with AI doing all the work for us. And he says that there is no child born today that will be smarter than AI. Think about that. No child born today will be smarter than AI. So, what do we do with that information? And companies are trying to figure that out. And as communication and PR professionals, it is our role to help companies figure that out. And we're seeing companies that are saying they're going to be AI first and they're leaving some people behind. We're seeing companies that are saying no AI at all, let's stop until we can figure it out. And then we have shadow AI so that everyone is bringing their AI to the table without letting people know that they're using it. Because there's some level of shame, especially in the communication profession, for utilizing AI. So we're really trying to figure this out. But one thing that is certain is AI will transform business. And if we continue to think of AI as a tool, we'll be left behind. AI is not ChatGPT. AI is not writing your press releases. AI is not writing your emails. It is a way of transforming business and the way we work for the future. And the sooner organizations start to think that way and start visioning what their world will look like as a partner with AI, the faster we'll begin to see that all-important ROI. So, where do we come in as comms professionals and PR professionals? So, we started this journey with the Global Alliance in 2024. And we created, through interviews, throughout our member association, we created 6 principles for guiding responsible AI. And the reason we went to responsible AI, not ethical AI, is ethics is foundational to our profession. Every organization you are a member of, whether you're in CIPR, whether you're in PRSA, whether you're a member of IBC, whether you're a member of CPRS, you have ethical standards. That is one of the cores of our profession. So there was no reason to start looking at ethics because ethics is foundational to everything we do. More importantly, is let's go past ethics. Let's look at how this becomes real. And so we created the responsible AI guidelines for the Global Alliance. And when we did, we let everybody know about them, but we knew that they would have to transform. That because AI was moving so quickly, responsible AI would be moving quickly as well. And we'd be learning things along the way. So we did some research. The Center for Strategic Communications and Excellence, along with my company, Reputation Lighthouse, did research on behalf of the Global Alliance to look at where our profession was and what were we doing to help move forward the AI movement. And what we found was pretty scary in some ways because we weren't leading the conversation. We were not educating. We were not talking about how responsible AI was being done within our organizations. We weren't talking about the frameworks. We weren't leading in AI governance. So there was this huge opportunity for us as a profession to step forward and lead on the things that we do normally: educate, communicate. We weren't doing that when it came to AI. So we utilized this information and came together in Venice for the Venice Pledge. And the intent of the Venice Pledge was to bring together our member associations. We had done research around the globe to see where we were and to give us a stronger stance on where the profession was and how we could lead from a responsible AI guidelines. And when we came together, we added an element, and we defined responsible AI. And responsible AI is really the ethical, transparent, and human-centered development and application of artificial intelligence. But it strategically supports, not replaces, human judgment, creativity, and communication. It emphasizes accountability, fairness, and accuracy while minimizing bias, misinformation, and harm. Responsible AI focuses on mitigating risk of AI, upholding privacy and data protection, reflecting professional and organizational values, and ensuring proper attribution, governance, human oversight to protect trust, integrity, and societal well-being. When we take responsible AI to that level and we begin to understand why it's more than just ethics and governance. So there are now 7 AI guiding principles. Ethics first. As I said, ethics is foundational to everything we do as a profession. Human-led governance. Governance is important, but it must be human-led. Personal and organizational responsibility. We are responsible for the work we do through AI. And that's becoming a real challenge. If you look at all the world's news around AI, you look at major organizations that have put forward research documents that did not have proper attribution and were coming forward with fake information and had been presented with fake information. That is personal and organizational responsibility. When we look at spreading deep fakes, when we look at the challenges that are happening where AI is actually fueling riots, AI is fueling attacks on corporations, it is manipulating stock markets, it is manipulating elections. When we look at that, it is our personal and organizational responsibility to call that out. Awareness, openness, and transparency. This one's a really tough one. And the reason it's a tough one is research saying that communication, use of AI in communication is taboo. It erodes trust. We're seeing research that's saying that it makes people feel that you're lazy, that you're cutting corners. So if we're open and transparent that we're using AI, but people believe that it's eroding trust, and it is a belief that it's eroding trust in us, then that's a challenge. So people tend to say, "Oh, I don't want anybody to know that I'm using AI." So that's why this next one is so important: education and professional development. We have to educate. In order to be aware and open and transparent, we have to educate people as to how to use AI properly and how to put that human in the center. And these two have to go together. We cannot be open, transparent if we do not educate and bring our profession along. Being an active global voice, we must fight misinformation and disinformation. And the age of AI has manipulated it and provided us an incredible challenge when it comes to the speed that misinformation and disinformation can be taken out. And then finally, the one that we added was human-centered AI for the common good. And as we move forward, we'd love for you to sign the Venice Pledge, because that means that you've signed up to this, that you believe in this, and also understand that on a yearly basis, we're going to update it because the world is changing. But the thing that I would like for you to know is this is becoming a real thing. This is becoming where people are talking about this in rooms that we're not in. NATO just met with all the comms directors around the world that are members of NATO, and they began to look at the Venice Pledge. And no one from the Global Alliance was in the room. But they said there is no other industry that has a guideline like the Venice Pledge. And here the public relations and PR and communications industry has a guideline of which we can take and lead within our organizations, we can lead within our governments to start the conversation of what responsible AI looks like. So then we look at, and the Center for Strategic Communications and Excellence brought forward this information and the survey information and the Venice Pledge and said, so what's our role as communication professionals, and what's our playbook here? And there are 4 plays. Support corporate reputation by building the human connection. Improve leadership, communication, and strategic alignment. Lead the conversation on responsible AI. We already have the guidelines to do that. Build AI literacy while leveraging AI to simplify and improve. So you can also download a copy of the professionals playbook in the age of AI. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Bonnie. That was really wonderful. Yeah. And we've heard some great insights from you, and that frameworks can really guide us as, be responsible on AI application. So now the question is, how can we put these frameworks into practice? So today we have invited esteemed panelists to share their perspectives and experiences on responsible communication in the digital age. So I'm honored to introduce our panelists: Bonnie Caver, of course, the founder and CEO of Reputation Lighthouse; Tina McCorkindale, the president and CEO of the Institute for Public Relations, IPR; Mr. Daniel Drake, spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Czech Republic, and Alex Sévigny, Associate Professor of Communications Management at McMaster University. And to formally open today's panel discussion, let's welcome our moderator, Mr. Norman Agatep, the Chairman and CEO of Grupo Agatep and the Vice President External of the Public Relations Society of the Philippines. He also serves on the board of the Global Alliance. So let us all welcome Mr. Norman Agatep. The screen is yours.
Thank you very much, G, and welcome to all of our panelists here today. It's great to be associated with all of you, and I hope that we can get the ball rolling in discussing the very important matter that we've already started today. Thanks also, Bonnie, for that wonderful presentation. It's going to be the basis of a lot of what we're going to be discussing today. First off, because we do have a lot of college and university students who will be viewing this video later on and who are actually in this call, we all know that AI is used everywhere now in all aspects of our life. But in the school setting, I'd like to ask you, how can students and educators set clear boundaries when integrating AI tools into their coursework? Where do we draw the line as to when AI is used judicially and not? Perhaps you can start with Dr. Alex. In your line of work in the university, where do you draw the line?
Well, it really varies across the university, and I think the university hasn't set a general policy yet. So it's been left to departments, and my department has left our faculty to make choices as each professor wishes. I take a fairly AI positive approach because I know that the students that we are graduating are going to be using these tools. They're going to be the backbone of their professional work, right? Once they leave the university. So what I try to do is I try to encourage them to use AI responsibly as a research partner, not as a replacement for writing and criticism. To me, that's the critical point, is to avoid transferring your intellect into the AI. And so I think that, however, I do tell them that it's an accelerator, when it comes to particularly technical tasks or helping them with deep research and whatnot. So it's a balance, but I'm very careful to tell them not to let the AI think for them, because sadly then they won't grow and they won't gain skills. It's a balancing act.
For sure, no, and we can't let go of human intervention in the process. How about you, Daniel? I know that you are also teaching at the university in Prague, right? How about you in your experience there?
Thank you for giving me the word. In the Czech Republic, the approaches differ. For example, one of the faculties of the University of Economics last year stated, or at the beginning of this academic year, stated that they're all scrapping all of the bachelor thesis and all the dissertation theses because of artificial intelligence. They just cannot. They say they cannot trust the students to work responsibly. So I found this very interesting approach, very radical, and they're focusing on completely different projects to evaluate the work, which is one approach. Interestingly, this year I was asked by the university to specify the rules for AI use in my course, which is something that they didn't require me to do last year. So I see a little bit of a development in that approach. The way that I did it is that I fully support and endorse my students to use artificial intelligence. Most of my coursework is like write a diplomatic speech, write an op-ed as if you were writing into New York Times. And I know that those people do that and they use AI. So I don't want them to not use it. But very often when I get handed, and actually just a few minutes ago, I was reviewing some of the essays that were handed in, I follow up with some questions in class and I say, how would you rephrase this in your own words? Because I see you've helped a lot with artificial intelligence. So I try to support the use, but then also double down and follow up on sometimes when I feel like this is not entirely from their head. I want people to source exactly where they came from, and that's the way that I approach it.
That's excellent advice for educators, and really confirming if what they've done is purely on their own or if that's been assisted with AI, and double checking as well face to face. And in the other markets, how have you been drawing the line as well? Maybe anybody can share. Tina, perhaps, or Bonnie.
Sure. So I teach a class as well, and it's a graduate level research methods class, and it's online. But I do think there's no way you can ban students from using AI, nor should you. But you do have to teach them responsible use. And I think like not letting students do a thesis is way over the top because first of all, generative AI produces garbage in, garbage out, unless you have a solid base of tools. So if like, for example, I use ChatGPT all day, all the time, but it knows me, it knows my voice because I've created this beast. And then, but I know that I need to edit it. I know not to take research from it or spit out exactly what the output is, but that deals with critical thinking. And this is just sort of the reality of what we're going to have to do. So using it wisely, but there's a great term that was just in Harvard, but there's an article in Harvard Business Review called work slop. And it's like you create this sort of garbage output and then it gets sent down to the next person in line. And then they have to correct all this garbage that's been created from AI. And I think it's not where it needs to be. And for students, they absolutely should embrace it. However, to Dr. Sévigny's point, that it is inconsistent. I ask my students and they're like, we can use it in comms, but then if you go to like political science or some other majors, they don't let you use it at all. So.
Cool. Bonnie, anything to add to that?
I'm working with young professionals in corporations that we work with, and I think it's really a guidance of how to use it. They feel like they need to use it to be efficient, to be faster, to do more work, but they're missing kind of the points. They're missing what's core to them. They're missing that critical thinking. So we're doing a lot of training of how to use it, as for strategic projects, how to create your use case first before you go and have AI start something, how to train AI. I have a friend that's a professor in data, and he says garbage in, it's not garbage in, garbage out, it's garbage in, garbage multiplied. And so, we're really trying to teach young professionals how to use this strategically and how to keep their human piece there. If you just outsource everything and then you try to clean it up, you miss that critical thinking piece. And I talk about it sometimes, if you've been in the profession as long as I have, all of our panelists, you know how you work. You know how you critically think. For me, writing is one of the ways I critically think. And when I let AI write for me, I sometimes miss some things because I didn't critically think through the process. But you have to understand yourself and how you critically think.
Excellent. So I'm liking what I'm hearing. So what we're saying right now is that we all ought to start embracing AI because the students have also anyway. We shouldn't stop them from using it, but we should guide them as to the responsible use of AI because, as you pointed out, Bonnie, it's not garbage in, it's garbage multiplied if they're not embracing the proper guidelines in using AI. Now, I'd just like to ask, because both Tina and Daniel have already hinted on this, are there other ways of detecting wrongful use of AI so that we can prevent that type of practice among students? Does anybody want to share thoughts on this idea?
I mean, you can easily take, well, one, it's usually easy to detect via text. So I think when students are using AI, I've had this in even my research class after I told them not to use it. I don't turn them in for plagiarism at this point because I don't think they understand how to use it, rather than they're trying to deliberately mislead. However, what I make them do is I make them read the paragraph aloud and I want you to read this to me and tell me exactly what it means. And they find they trip themselves up quite a bit when they read it back. And that's so I try to show them rather than make it punitive. But I also try to emphasize, like, when you're trying to do research and you're thinking about research, it's not even encompassing. Everything doesn't encompass it. So I teach them how to research, but use to supplement and use it to be smarter. So that's typically but everyone in the classroom is very different to how they manage AI use. I showed them how to use like the deep research function as well, but using it just as a check, how to help write survey questions, like the things that they would have to do when they get into an organization. But unless you have a solid basis for it, then you're not going to be successful.
Sure. Thoughts from anybody else in the panel on the same question?
It's quite easy for me because in the Czech Republic, if I see someone using AI in a manner where it's quite clear that is not their style, because, for example, ChatGPT uses long hyphens, stuff that we don't even have in the Czech language, or semicolon, something that we don't have in the Czech language. And it's quite clear for me that they used AI, and then it's easy for me to confront them with it. At the same time, I've had students that have handed in very clever essays, very clever projects with grammar mistakes, and I thought, why didn't you use AI to double check the grammar? So it comes from both sides, and it's not straightforward. That's all I wanted.
That's very interesting. I know that while we are encouraging our students to use AI judiciously, we ought to also develop critical thinking, creative thinking, problem-solving skills, for example. So my next question is, how do we encourage these things while still encouraging the proper use of AI? So how do we empower our students to use AI, but also develop their critical thinking, creative thinking, and problem-solving skills? Does anyone want to share? Go ahead, Alex.
I've actually worked a lot on this theme, and I've tried to I leave from the point of view of teaching them structured prompting, right? So, and I try to tell them, a good prompt, like many of the prompts I'll use in my work are 250, 500, sometimes even longer, right? And I try to describe to them that the type of prompting that will get the best results is actually kind of an extension of library skills, right? I mean, if when you're using Boolean logic at the library, you get much better search results than if you are just putting in random keywords, and I say the same thing to them with AI. If you give the AI, if you give the LLM a really good spec where you've kind of given it an order of operations, and you've structured it almost as if you're writing pseudocode type of thing for you'll get a much better result. And to me, what I tell them is that if you think about it, that's actually the first step of research. It's defining your hypothesis or your thesis, and then your research questions, and making sure that everything fits together like a jigsaw puzzle, and putting together a good structured prompt is that, right? So that's one thing I do.
Perfect. Others, you might have something to add to that too.
If I might jump in just with a quick point, because critical thinking in AI for me is exactly what comes together and what can enhance our critical thinking. Because before AI, you wrote a piece, let's say you were a journalist, you wrote a piece, maybe an editor would give an eye on that and tell you what other ways to look at it. But with AI, you can prompt it to say, look at it as my fiercest enemy, look at it as a person creating Russian propaganda, in my case, look at it through the lens of so-and-so. And then you can sort of structure your piece again, taking into account views that you wouldn't have thought of before. So for me, that is really the key moment in my concrete work as a spokesperson for the Czech Foreign Ministry, where I use it all the time, where I want it to look at it. I sort of structured as Tina say she created a beast. Well, I've created multiple beasts of, in our case, Russian propagandists that I have a nice chat with in the evenings just to see what they think of my work, and then I restructure it.
I like what you're saying, because you're saying that critical thinking and AI use can exist mutually, can exist together, that in fact your critical thinking can govern the way that you use AI. And that's very important to realize. Maybe Tino or Bonnie, anything to add?
You know, some of the things we're using it for is reputation management, looking at deep fakes, looking at patterns. You can take AI posts and you can find patterns to realize that they're really being run by bots and bot networks. And there's some commonalities to that. So you can see that some of the information that's fueling conversation against corporations or governments, et cetera, have common patterns so that you can actually fight back and realize that it's really not people fueling that information.
Got it. Thanks for that. I'd like to shift gears a bit, because I know that there are also young professionals in this room, and young professionals who will be viewing this video later on demand. In the workplace, what are ethical limits of using AI, for example? A lot of us like I run a PR agency, a lot of our use for AI is on creating content. Well, we use AI to develop content, but of course, we make sure that there's human intervention there. What are some ways by which we can use AI in our profession while still embracing the ethical limits or understanding the limits, ethical limits of AI in our profession? Any thoughts on that? Daniel, I know that you're using AI in your line of work in diplomatic communication. Maybe you'd like to start off.
Sorry, could you repeat the question a little bit, because it jumped?
Sure. Are there in your practice in using AI in your practice of communication, what are the ethical limits that you have to make sure that you're working with?
Well, the biggest ethical limit, and this I see in the Venice Pledge as well, is sort of not manipulating the facts. So that obviously in political communication, there's always a degree of spin. And I'm not going to lie, spin is the majority of my work. And you're confronted with, do you stay in the facts or do you create a virtual reality? As with some politicians, we see they coined the term alternative facts and they live in a completely different world. Well, obviously that's not what we're trying to do. So the biggest challenge is to know what the level of, well, let's say what the level of spin we are willing to take without going on to a completely parallel universe. Another ethical challenge is something that is just, I thought I'd mention it. Obviously, with an institution like the Foreign Ministry, it is expected to be very diplomatic, very stiff, very sort of institutionalized, but that clashes with communication algorithms. So if we want to be seen and we want to go viral, it's difficult for me to stay in that very diplomatic tone. So another challenge that I often face with is, am I not being too infantile with the communication? Am I not being too dodgy, too controversial? So those are the two main challenges that we sort of have to deal with.
Bonnie, I know that you've already hinted on many of these challenges and limits with regard to ethics in your talk. Could you elaborate on some, and maybe some specific examples that you've encountered?
You know, I think one of the biggest things is that it's a gray area. And although I say that we're ethically, based, one of the things I do when I speak and do workshops is I give some scenarios of ethical challenges and ask people, how are they doing that? And you're basically applying the PR and the communication ethical lens to it, but it's a little gray. It's difficult. And so I think one of the biggest things we can do is to constantly challenge ourselves and question is that ethical and the way we're going to do that? And so I would encourage everyone to work with your teams and ask them some ethical questions around AI and see how you come to the table, because it is not as clear as you would think it is. And the other thing, and I'll continue to say this, is you know, we have to bring young professionals along. And I talked to the head of PRSA a year ago, and she was telling me that PR firms were having a lot of pressure not to put junior people on accounts. So, you know, let AI do that. And so as professionals and as academic leaders, how do we bring young professionals along so that they get that opportunity to learn those skills, to learn the critical thinking, to learn the strategy, when in fact our clients don't want them on the account, or our corporations aren't hiring them. So how do we bring them along? And I know that's important to everyone in this audience, but it's for us, it's a responsibility we have of how do we train and educate strategy and critical thinking for these young professionals that might not be getting those entry level positions because we're outsourcing to AI. And is that even right to do that? I don't think so.
Yes, I agree. Well, thanks, Bonnie, for that. I like what you said, that, you know, it's an elephant in the room. You're right in saying that it's a gray area, and we have to admit it. But I like what you said, that we've got to start talking about it in our boardrooms and making sure that the entire organizations where we work at are fully in that conversation. Maybe Alex or Tina, any thoughts as well as how we can train young professionals?
Yeah,
Or,
so I'll just one of the as far as ethics, when we look at the Venice Pledge and talk about the importance of transparency, people, and whether you're hiring a firm, they have expectations that you're not using AI to do the majority of work, even if you are using it. And we saw that case at Deloitte in Australia, where they had a $440,000 report. They had to refund some of it because they had included fake citations and hallucinations. So there's the expectation that what you produce is, and it's a huge violation of trust and confidence when people don't sort of vet the processes of AI. But what the research shows, and McKinsey published a study recently, and they asked leaders their perceptions of what percent of their employees were using AI for more than 30% of their task. Then they asked actual employees to what percent were they using AI for more than 30% of their task. And there's a huge disconnect. You know, employees themselves said they were using it 3 times as much. When they looked forward a couple years, it exploded significantly, yet leaders didn't know. We're publishing an article in our research letter tomorrow that talks about how, you know, the numbers in this Deloitte study were in the upper 50s of people using AI to some degree in the workplace. However, less than 40% were trained on it. Organizations are behind on training and educating their employees who are using AI, even if the organization doesn't want them to. Now, of course, like some in the financial industry and others block your ability, but they can still get around that and use it. So it really is the organization's responsibility to train them on ethical AI use, but in a broader scope, training employees on information literacy overall. So it's not like, here's the tactics of how to use AI. It's how do you digest and use information overall? Can you detect if something is real, fact, opinion, misinformation? These sort of overall information literacy is missing from a lot of organizations overall.
Absolutely right, Tina. Thank you for sharing that. Maybe Alex, you might want to add to what's already been discussed on the topic.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Tina just said, that's the education and training piece is key. What I try to tell my students, particularly my undergrads, but maybe a little bit more on the Masters of Communications Management students, is that it's understanding AI's place in your organization is a strategic asset for you. And so, what I tell them is I say, the biggest thing you can do is understand your organization, right? So understand its mission, vision, values, understand its strategic objectives, understand its market objectives, and so forth. And then if you're working with AI, or if you're working with a team that's kind of floundering with AI or doesn't have a lot of direction, try to understand how AI can align with that MVV or mission, vision, values, or strategic objectives. And that's for you, that can be a good career builder, because it can be very helpful in demonstrating that you are a proactive strategic thinker who is considering alignment on brand voice, mission, and so forth, right?
Excellent. Thank you so much, Alex. I'd like to swerve a bit and segue to a slightly different topic. In the video that we all viewed just a few minutes ago, there was a section on how do you say this, on advocacy. No? So my question is there an opportunity to use AI to amplify advocacy and causes responsibly? Any thoughts on that? I know that might be a little bit difficult, but what we do want to encourage is for young professionals to be able to use the technology that's available to them to cause meaningful change. So is there an opportunity for AI to be used by young professionals to drive causes or advocacy, brand advocacy? Any thoughts?
I think it's a way that people can get into a lot of trouble, to be honest with you. Because I think encouraging more slacktivism or sort of a TikTok activism or pat thinking is probably not great. I did this experiment with my students where there's a topic of that is the topic of the lecture, and what I did on a couple of occasions, I quickly looked on TikTok and on Instagram and where else? I can't remember. I think it was those two mainly. And then I asked for opinions, and almost all the opinions came verbatim out of those venues and not out of the readings, right? Assigned for that day. So do I blame them? No, because that's their environment and it is what it is, right? But I worry that generating more cliched sort of sloganeering on social media using AI as a helper and as a spreader, as a disseminator, might have terrible effects, actually. Yeah.
I totally appreciate that point of view, Dr. Alex. Thank you so much. Nonetheless, I'm still going to pursue the idea of advocacy because it's an important part of the video that we saw. Maybe let me shift in this direction instead. No? Are there other best practices of using online, for example, online communication to truly effect change in your respective markets? Not necessarily AI, but maybe social media, as in the case of what we've seen in the video.
So I can say, because I'm in the United States, I can just talk about maybe what we've seen here with social media. It's in the case of like online, sometimes social media has a lot of good to it. So when people are saying, especially in the government, that Chicago or Portland are war-torn cities, and there's all this disruption, there's a lot of people on the ground who are sharing videos of TikTok, which gets picked up by some mainstream outlets or on comedy shows like The Daily Show that can show like what the reality is. So I think there is great change in terms of it can show the opposite side when there is disinformation that's happening, to say something is happening when that is actually not the case. So we have seen that social media, TikTok, and we talk about Gen Z. We know that Gen Z favor more video channels. So Reels, they don't use Facebook, TikTok, and others. So how can we help facilitate that to be sort of the truth tellers of what's happening? But now with AI, you can also create videos that are very hard to discern if they're AI or not, which is a whole nother story altogether, which is why the information literacy piece is so important.
I agree totally. In other markets, perhaps, Daniel or Bonnie, any thoughts to add on how to use online and social media to promote advocacies and to...
So I'm really conflicted about this whole topic, and it's really interesting to listen to you guys, because when Arab Spring happened and all the students managed to get people in the streets and share the real events happened, everyone was talking about how social media is changing that and how it's managing to pursue democracy, and it looked all very good. And then suddenly it shifted into just nonsense AI deepfake stuff. And, you know, I'm seeing a lot of that daily work from Ukraine and stuff, that even if you're on the one side or the other side, there's so much AI nonsense that's happening, and it's difficult to navigate through that. So I don't know. One good example that I saw in a market of of a marketing campaign, there's this big sports organization that was trying to get young people to be more interested in one of their annual events, and it's like a legacy thing. So my parents' generation would know this, but young people like me wouldn't know about it. And what they did was they created a deepfake video of these huge eagles coming into Prague, and it looked like a real thing. And because the organization is called The Eagle, it suddenly raised interest of this event, and suddenly this AI deepfake video was all around Czech Republic, and young people like me started to take interest. Like, what is this about? So AI deepfake, if it's, but important was, and that's where the ethical problem is. The important thing why it worked was that it wasn't transparent. It wasn't clear that it's a deepfake video. Had it been a deepfake video, transparently said, this is a deepfake video, we wouldn't take interest in it. So that's why I'm conflicted. But to your other question, I'm going to use this one example for which I actually won an award here in the Czech Republic. Was when we were traveling to this conference of one of the organizations of which Russia is still part of, and I don't want to get into politics, but I'll explain why I'm talking about it. Was that what we wanted to do was, while the Russian representative was speaking, we wanted to make clear that we don't agree with him. And normally when you do that on a diplomatic forum, you leave the room. That's your silent protest. But we knew this wasn't going to work because of some media angles and cameras. So what we did was that I read a book very ostensibly in front of the camera where I was sitting. The book was called How to Get Putin into Jail. And suddenly this one moment, without me doing anything but reading the book, sprung out of the completely ridiculous, went completely viral. People were suddenly reading about a Czech diplomat doing some kind of a act of resistance, although I was just reading a book. So that to me showed that even in such a boring format like a diplomatic meeting of some random people, there's opportunity for the people to take interest, to do an act of resistance, and this time it works. So that's how we're trying to think about it in the Czech diplomacy, to find these little moments when we can work, whatever the topic is, whatever the messenger is.
I can
That was
add
great.
on.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Yes,
I
go
can
ahead,
add
Tina,
on,
please.
yeah, a little to what Daniel said. Disinformation is definitely a larger piece of what it's used for rather than for good. And when he was talking about the Arab Spring, a lot of that was on Facebook, and because there was really no other outlet to be able to communicate with each other. So in that case, the using it as a communication piece, but then it spiraled out of control. So I just pulled this up because I just saw it today. It was just published that the Institute for Strategic Dialogue did a study where they went to different chatbots, generative AI engines, and asked it questions about very neutral information about NATO peace talks. And it looked at neutral information, malicious information. And what it found is that a lot of the chatbots are citing like Russian disinformation sources, right? They're citing like Sputnik Globe and Sputnik China, like these propaganda, disinformation sources. So this is really significant. We had, because I guess nothing else was happening in the US at the time, there was a change to a chain's logo called the Cracker Barrel, where everyone was like up in arms about a dumb logo change. Sorry, I'll just tell you how I feel about it. However, when you look at one of the companies did an analysis after, and 44% of the discussion were chatbots. So it's this great piece where you have these chatbots who try to create emotional, angry users, because that's how we share it and they get more attention. And then 2 days later, they're flipping to the other side so that it kind of keeps the topic in the spotlight. And this is one of the ways why it's different from social media to Gen AI.
Yeah.
Because when you have bot networks, they create something called copy pasta, which means I can generate copy on X, I can generate copy here, and I can just post stuff on bots. But now with generative AI, there's something called prompt pasta. And this is all from Alethea, which analyzes disinformation. And what prompt pasta does is it allows you to have all sorts of different types of posts rather than the traditional copy and paste post. Then it will create all sorts of different posts for you that have disinformation. That way you can spread the word faster. And it's very hard for people to detect, is this disinformation or is this actually someone putting something together rather than a bot? So.
And then
So interesting, Tina.
as
Yes,
the way AEO and GEO work, the more that's proliferated across, that becomes the story. So you have this disinformation that now becomes what comes up in the AEO and the GEO, and it outtalks the brand. You know, so, and the other part of that, and it happened in the Cracker Barrel situation, but I would also ask, have we researched the Peru situation? Because even before AI was involved, we saw bad actors using the tools of social media to proliferate discourse. And the same thing happened with the Cracker Barrel situation, is because AI can research you so fast, it knew exactly who to target that would share the news. So 44% were AI bots, but those 44 AI bots were targeting people that they knew would just blindly share and move the information forward. So the sheer information that the AI bots can give you to help that disinformation is really scary. Where advocacy comes in on the brand side, on the government side, is you have to fight that. And we have to stand up against that. And that becomes a crisis management or risk management side of things that's a little different than we've ever done before. But we have to, our websites have to have, you know, here's the facts. We have to constantly be looking at those kinds of things, and we have to call out. And it goes entirely to Tina's point of the AI literacy and educating people. AI, we can be a partner with AI, or AI can be done to us. And right now, AI is being done to us a little bit. And as corporations and governments, we're not really doing a good job of educating and pushing back.
Excellent points, both Tina and Bonnie. I know that we're running out of time, and there might be questions actually from people who are tuning into that today. So if there are any questions, please type them into the Q&A box. We'll try to get back to you with the answers to your questions. But meanwhile, while you're typing in those questions, I just like to invite the members around this table to share their final thoughts. Maybe your thoughts on how students and young professionals can use both communication and technology to effect relevant and meaningful change in the world. Anyone can start, but let's go around the table. Go ahead, Alex.
I can start. I can kick us off. To me, students can and what I encourage students to do is to learn this as a tool that becomes a force multiplier for them. I mean, for example, I do a lot of technical stuff. And if you are using it as a research aid or as a contrarian research design debate partner, or as a means of broadening and deepening your ability to put together metrics and evaluation, I think that AI is an incredibly empowering tool, because it can make you faster, it can make you smarter, it can force you into much better critical thinking and much better analytical thinking. Because to really get good results out of AI, the more structured and code-like your prompts are, the better your outcomes will be. So I mean, getting good at using AI in a deep and methodical way is actually a wonderful intellectual exercise, and that will make you a better strategic thinker, that will give you critical and analytical skills. I think on the flip side, understanding alignment is the strategic advantage, and particularly responsible AI and ethical alignment. So that's my advice. Like, use the tool to enhance yourself rather than to diminish yourself, because it's an incredible enhancer if you use it the right way.
Wonderfully said, Dr. Alex. Thank you so much. Daniel or Tina or Bonnie, you may.
I'll just say what Alex said. So +1.
Thank you.
I also agree with what Alex said. Make yourself smarter, make use out of this incredible well of information that is there. But at the same time, be wary, as it can become a drug just like anything else. And, all these meme videos of people not being able to socially interact anymore without asking ChatGPT what to say. It may be a joke video now, but I've seen people, when I ask them if they can find out something for me, immediately typing into ChatGPT, take a stance with that. Yeah, so
that's a scary thing to see, Daniel. But yeah, thanks for the advice, Bonnie. Any parting shots?
Let's use it as a partner, not as a replacement for what we do. And let's not forget that ChatGPT is just a little teeny piece of AI. Agentic AI is going to rock our world, and we need to be prepared for that. But we can learn from the process of generative AI to say, how do we as communication and PR professionals help lead this conversation and help lead the conversation around AI literacy and governance and responsible AI, and teach. It's our role not only to learn, but it's our role to help organizations teach.
Wonderful too, Bonnie. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our panelists today for joining us in this discussion. It's been a pleasure speaking with you and hearing your various points of view around this topic. Certainly, this conversation ought to grow, and hopefully everyone else in their respective classrooms and boardrooms start embracing this conversation and make it a running discourse within your organization. So once again, thank you very much, Alex, Tina, Drake, and Bonnie, for sharing your time with us. I'm now going to turn this discussion over to Gesille for any other points that you need to raise before we end our webinar tonight.
All good. So thank you so much. Thank you, Norman, for being a dynamic moderator for today. And again, thank you, Bonnie, Tina, Danielle, and Alex. Thank you so much. That's really a valuable perspective that you shared today. And also, we would like to thank the Global Alliance Regional Directors for their continued support in making this program possible. And to everyone joining us today, especially the students and young professionals, thank you for joining. And you have to also tune in for our Hero Web Conference every year. So this is not just a one-time event. This is a shared platform to shape the future of our profession, a future that is ethical, transparent, and inclusive. So, through open dialogue, collaboration, and real world insight, we hope to help prepare you to lead with integrity and purpose. So, let today's discussion remind us that even in an AI driven era, technology does not define communication, it is the human intent behind it. So, before we close, I would like to invite all students and early career practitioners to take part in our hashtag Next in Line Changemakers recognition. So this initiative will honor 60 communication students and emerging professionals around the world for their integrity, innovation, and positive impact. So to participate, you are asked to submit a short reflective essay of 250 to 650 words on the theme, how can AI-driven communication change the world? From information to impact, reimagining the future of communication with ethical AI. So essays should be submitted to your respective regional chair. Submissions are open until 10th of November, and the winners will be announced on the 20th of November. So full details are available on our website and social media. So once again, thank you all for being with us. We look forward to seeing you again next year. Stay safe, stay inspired, and keep communicating for good.